Hello, dear friends, and welcome to Woke Wednesday. Hi, Kyle. How are you? Hello, peeps. How are you doing? Welcome to Woke Wednesday. Welcome to the second day of June. Welcome to Pride Month. All of the good things. Talk about Florida. Let me tell you something about Florida. I am so fucking tired of Ron DeSantis. I'm so fucking tired of him. Folks, you know the drill. Put in the comment section how you are all feeling this week as we head into a new month, right? I don't know. I'm feeling very compartmentalized. Let's put it that way. On one hand, I am super excited that it is Pride Month. I am super excited that we've had an official start to summer. On the other hand, I'm just watching our democracy just slide down the fucking sewer and everyone being really excited about taking their masks off, but then also not so focused on what the fuck Republicans are doing right now. But on today's Woke Wednesday, dear friends, I am going to have a reflection on Biden's speech in Tulsa, Oklahoma yesterday. As many of you know, or if you watched it, well, how many of you did watch the speech yesterday or actually watch recaps of Biden's speech yesterday? And tell me, what did you think initially? Like, if you were watching in real time, what did you think about Biden's speech in Tulsa, Oklahoma yesterday for the remembrance or recognition, right? Because this country has buried the history of white mobs, white terrorism for 100 years. And they are continuing to do so now with their pushback against, critical race theory and teaching the truth about our real American history, about the roots of how we got to 1/6. How about that? How did we get to a place where a white domestic terrorist mob decides to storm the Capitol building? How did we get to a place where you have Republicans that want to gaslight the fuck out of us and tell us that they were just a lost tourist group, right? Like Andrew Clyde did. Out of Georgia, Representative Clyde, who boldly lied to the American people and said that if you call this an insurrection, you're a bold-faced liar. Although the people that are now arrested by the Department of Justice and being charged with a federal crime have admitted that they are in fact insurrectionists, right? So not sure what the mix-up is there. But what did you guys think of the speech? So Kyle says, that you were listening. It was 100 years, but it was a speech. It was a wonderful speech. And that's kind of how I felt. And if you all were watching MSNBC yesterday, following the speech, Dr. Jason Johnson pretty much provided my feedback when Nicole Wallace from Deadline White House said, "What did you think about this? I think this is one of the best speeches that Biden has ever given." And he's like, "It was a speech. Like, yeah, it was nice, but if you're not going to put teeth behind any of the things that you're saying, if you're going to talk about the fact that seeing a Geico commercial with an interracial couple shows that we have made progress in America, then you're missing the fucking point." And I felt that when Jason said that. I felt it now. I'm tired of conversations about racial reconciliation when we won't actually acknowledge what white Americans have done to Black people in this country and not people of color. I am specifically today talking about the history of terror and violence against Black Americans in this country. And while Tulsa, Oklahoma, which we just recognized on its 100-year anniversary, understand that Mrs. Fletcher, Mother Fletcher, that President Biden was referencing, who was in the audience yesterday, that she's 107 years old and is still at 107. I mean, God bless this woman and all of the things that she has seen. She's still having to testify in front of Congress asking for recognition and reparations for how a white mob 100 years ago bombed, tortured, beat, hung people, Black people, how insurance companies denied them the claims in order to restore what was ruined and put thousands of people into homelessness, right? Like, how did that help Oklahoma when you had a community that was thriving and then you destroy it and now those people are forced to be on assistance of some kind that then you deny them of? How does that help? You see, on Woke AF Daily, on Woke Wednesdays, I have our friend, our in-house doctor, Dr. Jonathan Metzel, talk often about his book, Dying of Whiteness. And when I look and I see, when I listen to Biden yesterday recounting what was told to him about just how horrific the events were over those 2 days of 300 men, women, and children being murdered, of them being lynched, shot in the head as they kneel at their beds praying, locked in their homes as they were set on fire. As you listen to those stories and then realize that this isn't an anomaly, right? If you go to Joy Reid's Instagram page, if you go to any Black journalist that has been following Tulsa for the longest time, you will see a map. And I posted it in my stories. You will see a map of the United States with markers around all of these cities across the country with dates timestamped of when white mobs murdered Black people, destroyed Black businesses, right? The Tulsa Massacre was one of the largest, but it was not the only. And so when you ask yourselves, how come I'm just learning about this now? Because I interview people all the time, right, on Woke AF Daily, and they say to me, these are well-researched people, that they have only learned about the Tulsa Massacre recently, and they're embarrassed by it. And I'm saying, don't be embarrassed. It was purposeful that you were robbed of this education, of the truth about this country. Because you see, what Joy Reid said last week on her show is that what white racist Americans want is the bedtime story version of America. To what? Bolster patriotism, so that on the 4th of July, you can wave your flag and light fireworks and think that, you're the greatest country and believe in the lie of American exceptionalism. That's what they want. But the reality is that America's soil is steeped in the blood of enslaved Black people and freed Black people, right? That even when you said separate but equal, that you didn't fucking mean it, right? Because if you did, then the thriving community of Greenwood in Tulsa would have been left alone, right? They had created an insular community where Black people were thriving, Black businesses were thriving, but white people didn't want that. So when you talk about the history of this country, and we like to believe that it was so long ago, these events were so long ago, no. Because remember that Tulsa was 100 years ago, but what we just learned recently about the bombing that took place in Philadelphia in 1985 was within all of our fucking lifetimes. Right? Anthropologists were carrying around the remains of a Black teenager as if it was some type of exotic animal that they found on safari. That was in 1985. So when we learn these stories now, recognize that you're not at fault. It is a system of white supremacy that our public education system upholds year after year, century after century, to make certain that we don't question the policies of today, right? That we just continue along with the narrative and the lie that white America has created, that Black people are lazy, that they are criminals, that they need to be submitted, right? They need to be submissive. But when you look and you say to yourself, so interesting that when Black people built up towns, when they built up sustainable areas, right, that were for them, for us, by us, how white people destroyed it. and then want to turn around and then say, by us going to the government and saying, and going to insurance companies and saying that you are owed back what you destroyed, telling us that we are fucking lazy. Oh, you don't build anything. You don't create anything. And then they whitewash all of our history books. They whitewash everything. Do you know? Do you know what went missing in Tulsa, Oklahoma with all of the newspapers that they had at that time? You know, microfilm, photographs, everything buried along with the bodies that were thrown into a mass grave. That is who America is. Tulsa, Oklahoma, just like Derek Chauvin, is not anybody's exception. It's not like, oh, well, it's, you know, in this area was, you know, it was the times, as they like to say, to justify white violence. It was the times. No, because there is a direct connection between the incidences of violence that have been consistent throughout the founding of this nation and where we are now, with policing, with the racial wealth gap, with the gap in our education system, with the fact that Black people that live in communities, right, that have been marginalized and redlined are more likely to have environmental issues, right? More likely to have the effects of climate change. All of these things, folks, it didn't spring up out of nowhere. So there's a reason why they are trying to rob us of our history now. It's so that we don't ask questions about the policies that they have fucking created. They want to say to us that everything, oh, Black people make everything about race. No, white people make everything about race and racism, right? They don't want America to have free healthcare. Why? Because it means that Black and brown people will also have access. All of a sudden, it was called welfare when government was created for social safety nets to help impoverished whites, but then all of a sudden it's welfare and welfare queens when it's open up to people of color. Everything that has happened and continues to happen in America springs from America's original sin that they have tried to whitewash and erase for centuries. And if not for Mrs. Fletcher, a 107-year-old woman, to sit before Congress, to have to be wheeled in, to recount the smell of Black bodies, the visions that she has never been able to get rid of, littered on the streets, the chants that these domestic terrorists used as they were marching in and bombing, going to war. Against what? You know, one of the things that James Baldwin, the questions that he is always asked, right? But the one that sticks with me all the time is when he asked, white people need to ask themselves why they needed to invent the nigger in the first place. Because it is an invention, right? That they needed this boogeyman, this person, this entity, this stereotype in order to carry out, right, their fragility. Because that's what this comes back to. If you believe that you are actually superior to another group of people, then why would you need to put blockades and obstacles in their way, right? You don't need to stop people that you believe are going to fail anyway. You just move out of the fucking way and let them do so. This is wrapped in white fragility. This is wrapped in the belief, the deep down truth that they are not better. Right? Not in any way, shape, or form. But it comes with this idea that they have the ability to dictate, right, what we learn, where we live, how we move, because they are the ones that are in power. I say often on Woke AF Daily, I recount what a cricketer said back in 2020. He said, history is written by the conqueror, not the conquered. So you see right now with this conversation, which is not a fucking conversation, it is erasure, much in the same way that the Tulsa Massacre was erased for a century. This conversation about critical race theory is about a reckoning, right? That is what it means to have a racial reckoning. When Joe Biden said yesterday that great nations don't hide from their dark side, they learn from it. But you see, a learning comes with asking questions. And what Republicans and white supremacists don't want, and I don't know why I said those things like they are two separate things, because they are fucking not. What white supremacists don't want is for you to question. Right? Why are you so afraid of the truth? Because if you are a reporter, right, and you have the ability to stick your phone or recorder in these Republicans' faces at the state, local, and federal level, ask them that, what the fuck are you afraid of? What are you so fearful of? Right? That your grandpappy wasn't as great as you thought that they were? Right? Everybody, if you ask any white person, they'll tell you, oh, my family didn't own slaves. Well, all of y'all could not have not owned slaves because there were millions of enslaved Africans that were here. Oh, my great-grand, they didn't participate in Jim Crow. You sure? Because when I talk to my white friends about what their great-grandparents were able to pass down to them, they absolutely fucking participated in Jim Crow and white supremacy. You see, because the people of the Greenwood District in Tulsa, Oklahoma were robbed of the ability to pass down generational wealth. What my objection was, and there were several to Biden's speech yesterday, was do not think that you are going to meet this moment of a racial reckoning with what is owed to Black people by wrapping it in a bow of charity and calling it grants for disenfranchised or marginalized businesses. You see, because the businesses that were operating on Black Wall Street back in 1921 were not disenfranchised. And when when economists look at what was destroyed, it is akin to close to $30 million of businesses, homes that were destroyed. How do people in America build wealth? Through home ownership and business ownership and the ability to pass that down. So do not then come to us 100 years fucking later and tell me that I can apply for a small business grant. The fuck? You don't wrap up the destruction that our government has participated in of Black wealth and then turn around and tell us that you're going to offer grants and loans that we have to apply for and pay back. If there is anything that we have learned from Mrs. Fletcher's statement to Congress, was that we are owed. We are not your fucking charity. You would have nothing if not for Black labor that you have stolen. So I am so confused why we continue to be in a space where we are begging for what is fucking owed. Right? Where philanthropists want to turn around and say, oh, we'll give you this handout. Bitch, what? You wouldn't have a pot to provide philanthropy. These big, white, wealthy families, where the fuck you think that money came from? That now they want to, what, blackwash? Oh, let me give you this handout, and then I can wipe out how I've participated in the destruction of Black wealth for centuries? You don't get to do that. The problem that I have with Biden's speech is that it was a speech, right? What I want it to be mandatory that the Tulsa Massacre, as well as all of the massacres that happened before and in between and after, are taught. And that schools would actually, maybe lose federal funding if they did not add it into the curriculum. Right? Where we start to put fucking might behind the things that are said and stop trying to negotiate with the people who are trying to uphold a system of oppression. I'm just so confused about when we're going to move on from this place We're saying, oh, it's a conversation around a racial reckoning in America and around critical race theory. No, that's not what the fuck it is. You have a bunch of old white men who don't want to look in the fucking mirror. And they don't want anybody else to look in the mirror either. Because then, as they have said, it will teach white kids to hate themselves. No, it will teach them to question themselves and question their families and question this country as to why they've been able to use their whiteness as currency, but their black and brown friends have not been able to. So don't talk to me about these grants and these gestures and, oh, we're going to give money to HBCUs. Again, we are owed these things. You are not doing us a fucking favor. But when you couch it as such, then people want to applaud and say, oh, thank you so much. If I steal $20 from you and I give you back $2, and I say, oh, here's $2. I hope that covers everything. I'm supposed to turn around and say thank you? Because that's what America has asked black people to do for centuries. You rob us of literally everything. Our lives, our livelihoods. Then you turn around. You want to call what is owed charity. And say that, oh, they need a handout because, they just can't do for themselves. And then we're supposed to say thank you? I think that is on some absolute and complete and total bullshit. And I'm tired of it. Right? And, here we are where we are learning day by day, right? That this is what is happening in America right now when Democrats have the White House and both houses of Congress. And I see no real big changes, right? So imagine, folks, what is going to happen when Republicans take back the Senate in 2022 and take back the House in 2022. If we do not start stepping like we are at war, because we are at war. Republicans are at war with America. They are at war with our democracy. They are at war with the truth. And they are mincing no words about it. You have former general, convicted felon, Michael Flynn, this past weekend, calling for a military coup, like what happened in Myanmar, to happen in the United States. Do you know where Michael Flynn is today? I'll tell you where he's not. He's not in fucking jail. You have the president, former president, disgraced, twice impeached president of the United States, calling for an insurrection. Do you know where he is not? He is not in jail. We now have a Republican Party that denied a bipartisan commission into the insurrection that occurred but a couple of months ago. And we're sitting here and Nancy Pelosi is talking about, well, I don't know if the president should appoint a special committee. Bitch, do you know how many fucking committee hearings we had on Benghazi that turned up nothing over 4 years in order for the big plot to bring down Hillary Clinton? I'm tired of giving people power and them doing nothing with it, because that's what we've been doing. We showed up in the midst of a pandemic to turn out in historic numbers. To only have what now? 300 voter suppression bills that are rolled out all over the country. And Joe Biden is busy in the White House trying to pass an infrastructure bill. What? We won't have a republic in several months, sir, if we don't pass the Voting Rights Act. And yesterday he called it out. He said we have 2 senators that conference more and vote more Republicans than they do their own party. So ask me, Chuck Schumer, why the fuck are you still allowing Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema to caucus with you? As if they are not out front moles for the Republican Party. Why are we sitting here right now and debating whether or not we're going to do away with the filibuster because you're afraid of how Republicans are going to act? Let me tell you this. They're gonna fuck you up regardless. So So stop being afraid. Do you know what freedom looks like? When you realize that whether you do what people want or don't want, that they're still gonna talk shit, right? So you know what they're going to do. So don't give a fuck. How about that? We are, folks, running out of time. And that is what is clear and what is evident. And Republicans are running out the fucking clock. And I'm just wondering when Democrats are going to wake up. Oh, maybe we'll wait for the Senate to hold another vote. Or how about you go on every fucking television station, every online media outlet, and you say that the reason why Republicans don't want a bipartisan commission is because they don't want it to link back to their involvement in the attempted overthrow of our government. How about instead of talking about your friend from across the fucking aisle, you start, oh, I don't know, talking about them like they are the enemy of the state, because that's exactly what the fuck they are. We keep getting distracted by their nonsense and their fuckery and not paying attention to the bigger picture that we are running out of time. They are going to take back the Senate and the House. And when they do, their sole mission, dear friends, is to finish what Trump started, which is the destruction of our democracy. Which means that our elections will look like they do in fucking Turkey, right? As opposed to what they have looked like for the last hundreds of years in the United States. So I don't know what we're waiting for, and I don't know why we are all pretending like everything is okay. I get it. Look, I get it. Vaccinated, it is summer. We have been living in a state of anxiety and trauma for 16 plus months. But here is the thing. Here's the big kicker. They are still coming for us. And they are making no secret about it. What Mike Flynn did over the weekend was not a dog whistle. It was a motherfucking bullhorn. He is calling for another violent overthrow of our government. People think that they failed on 1/6. I'm seeing people say, this failed coup. What makes you think that it was a failure? Because they succeeded with making it into the Capitol building. They succeeded with breaking into offices. They succeeded with death and destruction. All they did, folks, was test the fence. And do you know what the response was? The fence don't fucking work. So now they know the layout of the land, right? They have people working for them on the fucking inside, namely members of Congress that gave them the maps. So if you think that 1/6 was a failure, you're not paying attention. You're not. Donald Trump said this week, what? That he was going to be reinstated in August. And I said to folks yesterday on Twitter, pay attention to the dates that Donald Trump talks about. Pay attention to when he talks about certain time periods, right? Because he told all of his followers about 1/6, and he started doing that back in November of 2020. So Donald Trump now in June is talking about what he's attempting to do in August. Mike Flynn is out there telling folks that we need to look more like Myanmar than the United States. We know that of the 19 Oath Keepers that have now are facing federal charges, have been charged by the Department of Justice, that some of them are former and active law enforcement and military. Connect the dots. See what is going on. They're running school board people to ensure that they uphold white supremacy. They are making sure that your Secretary of States can no longer control your elections. They are emboldening poll workers. They are rolling out anti-trans, anti-woman bills. Pay attention. Yes, your masks have come off and we can all begin to try and figure out what our new normal looks like, but I wouldn't get comfortable. at all. Because you see, when I look at the pictures and listen to the stories of what transpired on those 2 fateful, horrific nights in American history in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that is what the Oath Keepers, the Boogaloo Boys, the Republican Party want to happen in every single city in America. Why do you think that they are lifting up all of their gun restrictions in places like Texas and Georgia and Tennessee and all these other places? Supreme Court is going to be hearing a case to uplift New York's gun ban in a couple of weeks. More guns, less education, no health care, no job opportunities. It is the perfect storm to replicate massacres and destruction across this country. And then what happens? You were then able to look at the Democratic Party and say, we need law and order, and then guess what swoops in right after? Authoritarian rule. This is not rocket science. This is tried and tested throughout the centuries of this world, of civilization. The playbook is not new. And so I'm wondering when Democrats are going to get their shit together and stop trying to work in lockstep with the enemy and recognize that they are the fucking enemy and that we are at war. We got but one more chance to save this democracy. That's it. Because come 2022, when midterms happen, that's what's on the ballot. And they know that. So don't wait and see. Organize. That is it for me today, folks, on this Woke Wednesday. If you want more of moi and you want to, support independent Black queer voices, then head over to patreon.com/wokeaf, and $5 a month gets you 5-hour-long shows each and every week. And I appreciate all of you who join every single week. Share with your friends. I post the videos right when I'm finished. So share, get more people here, because the more of us that are woke, the more of us that can create change. I appreciate each and every one of you. And like I say at the end of every Woke AF show, power to the people, and to all the people power. Get woke and stay woke as fuck. Until next time.